freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Greg DuCharme with you this evening, and this is your round one recap of the Travelers Championship. Joining me to break it all down is Kyle Porter. Kyle, good evening.
Greg, I can't believe they gave us the keys to the vehicle. Ill-advised. I don't know that we have yet gotten our driver's licenses, and Rick is just gallivanting about in Colorado, and he's probably going to rue the day that he handed over his keys to us underage drivers.
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen, what that vehicle is going to look like when he gets back from Colorado. But, we'll try to clean up after ourselves. Let's just leave it at that. But we got plenty of pizza money and plenty to get into.
Totally.
This round of golf today, this first round of the Travelers has been really a birdie barrage, as you expect to see at the Travelers. It's not a very long golf course, but I will say I was out there this week at the Pro-Am and walked the whole golf course. It's not easy, and these guys make it look easy. They're the best players in the world. It's so exciting to see. It really, after you get a chance to get out on this property, it's just amazing. But let's get into some of the names here from the morning wave. We saw the scores getting low early on, and it started with Akshay Bhatia, Kyle. He got off to a great start, made birdie on 3 of his first 6 holes, made the turn in 32, and then added an eagle at number 13, the par 5, and another one right after that with another birdie at 14, and it ends up being a bogey-free 64 for Akshay Bhatia.
Yeah, it was really impressive. You know, I was kind of looking at some of his numbers after he posted the 64, and I don't think I realized how good he's been so far this year, Greg. His progression as a pro has been pretty steady, but he's only 22 years old, and he jumped from like being a 0.3 strokes gained per round guy to this year he's like 1.1. Like that's really good for it. It's kind of, I think with guys like him and Sungjae, you forget like, oh yeah, they're so young just because they've been out there for so long, right? And I think his not only his career progression, but like his in-season progression to where he wins in Texas. He's been playing pretty good at the majors. Finished top 25 at the U.S. Open last week. Yeah, you see some of his numbers right here. He was T16 at the U.S. Open, made the cut at the Masters. Just some really solid golf. So I think sort of the next step for him, I don't know if it's contending for a major, but maybe it's contending to win one of these signature events as he kind of continues to progress in his early part of his career.
He really seems to have that kind of big boy golf course style of play. His ball striking is phenomenal. You know, he was third off the tee in this round, hit 11 of 14 fairways. His short game is good. The real big improvement has been with his putter this year.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, that broomstick has paid off. He was 6th in strokes gained putting today, gaining 2.8 strokes. So it's been fun to watch him, and we're going to have a lot. He's only, like you said, 22. We're going to have a lot of time to follow Akshay Bhatia. He's only got probably, 30 years left in his PGA Tour career.
He's going to make like $1 billion.
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll get into a little official money in his career. But what you look at when we talk about Scottie Scheffler in a little bit, Scottie Scheffler this year is basically, he's getting close to top 50 in all-time PGA Tour earnings. And so Akshay, with all this time, it's a great time to get out on the PGA Tour.
Oh, so good.
Another player who's had a relatively long career on the PGA Tour and has had some very, very good seasons and some struggles as well is Rickie Fowler.
Rickie Fowler.
There it is, Josh.
I like that coming.
Rickie Fowler, 64 today, bogey-free, his third bogey-free round of the year. Goes out in 32, makes birdie at 2 and 3, adds another one at 7, takes advantage of the par 5 13th, make it a birdie there, and then gets 16 and 17 with water lurking. So pretty good stuff out of Rickie Fowler in his opening round.
Yeah, it's, I was thinking, so him and Akshay were kind of co-leading until Tom Kim played really well late in the day. And I was thinking about both of them, and they've had very opposite seasons, right? Akshay has been, I think, really solid throughout and won, and Rickie doesn't have any top tens and hasn't really been close to winning since he won about this time last year at the Rocket Mortgage. So it's good to see him play well. I'm curious about just sort of what you think, Greg, about the top of this board, because there was a lot of guys, and you always see this or almost always in round one. Anybody that's in the top 10 in round one, they probably are putting pretty well for the event, right? Because it's very difficult to be at the top of the board after 18 holes without putting well. But this one kind of like this top 10 sort of particularly stood out to me as just a bunch of guys that got hot with the putter, including Rickie. Is there anybody that stands out to you as like, I don't know if that can hold up over the next 3 days?
Oh, well, it's a really good point. Akshay hit the ball so well and added a lot on the greens as well, that I do think that has a chance to hold up. Will Zalatoris hit it a whole lot better and putted
he hit
well.
it so good.
Kurt Kitayama would probably be the guy who we'll talk on a little bit. He did a lot of his work scrambling.
Yeah.
And one of the things about this place, Kyle, is it allows everybody to compete because it's not very long.
Right.
But the rough is really thick. And it's not only thick, but the grass is like mowed back towards the tee. So you get some awful lies. And these guys are really good. But if you look through these rounds up near the top, when they missed fairways, almost everybody, they're missing in the intermediate cut. They're missing in fairway bunkers. They're very seldom in the primary cut of rough. And so you have to avoid that. And I think that brings a lot of players right back into the mix. But someone like Rickie Fowler was able to avoid a lot of that heavy rough in the opening round. And that gives you the chance to hit it to 15 feet and see if you can make it. Hit it to 15 feet, see if you can make it.
Yeah. And I think this is like, he is sort of, Rickie is part of the composition of the top of this board that I think is a really interesting composition. I was just writing about this for CBSSports.com, but you've got some young guys in Tom Kim and Akshay. You've got some veterans in Rickie and Kurt Kitayama. You've got Zalatoris, who's been up and down. You've got Scheffler up there, Finau, Xander. There's just a lot of, like, to me, like, sort of really interesting storylines. If any of those guys won, I think it would be incredibly intriguing to sort of like leading into the middle of the summer. And Fowler is near the top of that list for me. It would be fascinating if he won this week after playing such bad golf for most of the year.
Yeah, and then it heads to Rocket Mortgage next week to defend a title.
Right.
In a field that will probably, a lot of these guys are taking that week off, given the schedule that we've had leading into this Travelers. So I agree with you. The storylines are very interesting, and it includes some Canadians who played some really good golf as well, like Taylor Pendrith, who seems to be healthy, seems to be in much better form ever since that shoulder injury kind of came back to life for him. And he goes out and shoots a bogey-free 65 in the opening round. Mackenzie Hughes as well goes out and shoots 65 and it put together another great round. He made 2 bogeys, but also an eagle at 6. So we got some Canadian players putting together some pretty good golf as well.
Greg, do you know how many Canadians are currently in the top 12 for the President's Cup team? So
I believe, is it 3?
It is. Can you name them?
I believe it's Connors.
Yep.
I believe it's Mackenzie Hughes. No. Oh, wow. Did Pendrith get in there with his win?
No.
Very interesting. Okay, so my boy Adam Hadwin.
Yeah,
he's in there. And Nick Taylor.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess sort of the direction that I'm going with that is that Pendrith and Mackenzie Hughes are kind of on the outside looking in on a President's Cup team that's going to go to Canada. Yeah, producer Josh has it right there. Pendrith is 13th actually. So I don't remember how many captain's picks there are for Mike Weaver. So, 6. Okay.
Yeah.
But you have to think if Canadians in the top 12, he's getting taken, right?
Yes. Especially if he's showing any signs of form.
Yeah. So I think that's actually a really interesting kind of sub story. People don't get super fired up about the President's Cup, and I understand why, but it's a meaningful thing to play in Canada as a Canadian at a President's Cup in Montreal. So I think that, those guys, Pender's hitting it good, really good. He had some stretches at the US Open where he hit it very well also.
He had a great US Open.
Yeah. And so I think both those guys are pretty live to win, maybe especially Pendrith, I would say. He finished T16 at the US Open. He's had three top 35s in a row, missed a cut at the PGA, T10 at Wells Fargo, and he won the Byron Nelson. So, excuse me, the CJ Cup Byron Nelson. So yeah, really good golf from those guys, and they've got just kind of a little bit extra to play for this weekend.
Yeah, and for them and for everyone north of the border, right? That it's really important that they start to play well, earn their way on this team. You don't want to put Mike Weir in a position where, he's just taking Canadians. Right? You want him to be, you have to take these Canadians.
Yep.
And I think, Corey Connors and a Taylor Pendrith, they need a little redemption after their performance at Quail Hollow, which was quite weak, and they were very popular heading in. Also at 6 under KP, Kurt Kitayama, who had an interesting round of golf today, but he gets in with 1 bogey, shoots 64, 6 under, some really good stuff. A little bit up and down with his ball striking, but all in all, a very good round today.
Yeah, it was. He's so interesting because he pops up and wins Bay Hill. Was that last year or 2 years ago?
Last year.
And you're kind of thinking, it's kind of a one-off deal or whatever, but he's kind of hung around. Like I think he's been kind of impressive just in the way he's hung in and played some good golf. I don't know. This is a tough ask, right? You've got Scheffler up there, Xander, Finau, Zalatoris, who we haven't even talked about, not to mention Tom Kim way out in front. Is Kurt Kitayama going to win this golf tournament? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, to scramble around to a 64 with a bogey in the first round is pretty impressive.
Yeah, he got, he missed a lot of fairways. He had to get up and down. He chipped in, hold out from the bunker early in his round. And then late in his round, when he kind of filled it up with, making those 3 birdies in a row, 14, 15, 16, on that back 9, he hit some really good iron shots. So
last in driving accuracy.
Yeah, 4 of 14 fairways.
Not good.
It's not a good recipe this week. I mean, normally at a PGA Tour event, you can get away with it.
Right.
I don't see players getting away with that this week. So yeah. I'm a little concerned with him. He's got to get the ball in play. If he does, yeah, he's got game, but he tends to be a little inaccurate off the tee.
Yeah.
All right. KP, we got some more heavy hitters to get into, including world number 1, Scottie Scheffler. We got some other guys who seem to be making a little bit of a turnaround. At least they did in their opening round. They were playing in the afternoon wave, and we'll get to that. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. Well, if you had any worries after Pinehurst and the U.S. Open for world number 1, Scottie Scheffler, many of them were erased in the opening round. Scottie Scheffler went out, shoots 5 under 65, 1 bogey on a par 5, number 6. And he gets himself, surprise, surprise, right back in the mix of another signature event.
Yeah, shocker. I do think there's a little bit, if you delve into the numbers a little bit, his approach play was not, I mean, Scottie's the best iron player in the world, right? And it wasn't great on Thursday. Now, I'd have to jump in here. U.S. Open, he was okay. It was still really good at the U.S. Open. He really,
he was 6th in the field.
yeah. It was more putting and there was some driving in there at the U.S. Open. So I don't. That's probably not a cause for concern. One round in, and listen, like number one player in the world, you're nitpicking everything. I mean, it's every shot, every putt, everything is looked at. That sort of goes with the territory. So, I think I said this on HQ. I think Scottie gets back to sort of being able to manage a more, I would call it a standard PGA Tour course. You know, it's different than a Colonial, but in terms of the way that everything plays out, those are more similar than they are to a Pinehurst. Right? Pinehurst was the one-off out of a group of PGA Tour courses, and I think that you're going to see Scottie manage his way around and ball strike his way around to another top 5 finish. Whether he wins is going to depend on whether he putts, but it's pretty hard to see him finishing outside the top 5 this week.
And I think he put a lot of pressure on his putter today, at least to make birdies. Because you look at those approach numbers, which are down a little bit. He's middle of the pack, 36th approaching the green, but he hit 17 greens.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, how much of his approach play was poor, or is it just simply the strategy? Like he's in position in the fairway and he's not hitting wedges to 8 feet and it's losing strokes to the field. So it's a curious thing to watch.
Yeah. And I would argue, like, I don't disagree with you, but this is also a place where you're going to have to get to like 22 under to win.
Yeah.
Right. And so he's going to have to either putt the lights out or get a little bit more aggressive and hit his spots a little better with those irons.
Yes. Or it continues to get really firm and really fast and more difficult for everybody, and scoring doesn't go the way that. There is some weather coming in tomorrow, so I tend to lean towards, you're going to have to get into the low 20s in order to win this tournament, especially with the leaderboard we have. Now, not that Scottie hasn't been struggling, but he struggled at the U.S. Open. You have Rickie Fowler, who's been struggling, who gets himself back into the mix. Wyndham Clark, who had just an amazing beginning portion of the year and was looking like the clear-cut second-best player on the PGA Tour, has really fallen off his game. But he comes out in round 1 and shoots a really nice 4 under par 66. I mean, there were definitely some positive signs from Wyndham Clark today.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of Wyndham Clark's year, right? I think it's been really weird. I mean, he wins Pebble, but it was 3 rounds. Then he almost wins Bay Hill and Players, and then he's bad at some of the majors, and now he's good again. I don't know. I don't totally know what to make of it, but I mean, it's a good sign to get in the mix. He was second in the field in driving distance behind only Victor Hovland. And yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like you said, it's a place where you can get into trouble if you're spraying it a little bit. And his driver generally, he has a tendency to spray, and he did again. I don't know how many fairways he hit. It wasn't a ton.
5. At 5.
Yeah, not great. But he made up for it. So I don't know. We'll see. He's somebody that I have a hard time figuring out because he's pretty inconsistent, but he's inconsistent in the right ways because he'll either miss a cut badly or go in the tournament.
It's a great point, right? If it's on, his best is as good as anybody's, but his worst is, well, it can look really bad.
Pretty bad, yeah. I mean, he could have 4 wins this year.
Yeah, if it weren't for Scottie Scheffler.
Yeah.
I mean, even with Scottie Scheffler, the putt on 18 at TPC Sawgrass was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So we'll be interested to keep an eye on him. He's one of those guys that I worry about. He's got the strength to get it out of the long rough and handle that, but I don't think you can get into the low 20s if you're playing out of the rough all day.
Yeah, it's kind of like Kitayama.
It's exactly like Kitayama.
Yeah.
He's very talented, very strong, just like Will Zalatoris, who's had another kind of interesting year. For a while, we thought he was back, missed the cut at Pinehurst, said he got out to River Highlands early and has been just grinding on the range and has been flushing it all week, and it continued in round one with an opening round 64 with 2 bogeys on the card. Some really good stuff out of Willy Z.
Yeah, it was, and it was good to see. You know, I remember at Bay Hill, he was playing great, and I thought, man, this guy should be like second or third in terms of Masters favorites, or at the time, maybe even first. This was before Scottie really started winning. And I think since I had that thought, he's been awful. He did finish top 10 at the Masters. He was good in spots there, but pretty bad other than that, at least by his standards. So this is a good sign for him to kind of get back to playing his level of golf. And I think if you look at the top of this board, it's kind of him and I would say it's Zalatoris, Scottie, and Finau that you would say like kind of hit it, like put it okay, but are still up there. And those are the kinds of guys that I like to watch for going into the second and third round.
Right. They didn't lean on their putter at all. They didn't have their, I mean, he gained half a stroke. He made 70 feet of putts, right? It was nothing special on the greens. Make the ones you're supposed to. That gives you a chance because you stayed in it and shot 64. When the putter gets hot, you can catapult up the leaderboard.
Yep.
So I agree with you. It's a really good sign. But they're all chasing. You go shoot 64 and you're trailing by 2. Welcome to TPC River Highlands. The man on top is the birthday boy. Well, he turns 22 tomorrow, and that's Tom Kim. Tom Kim shoots 8 under 62. He's bogey free, 8 birdies, just fills it up on the back nine. 32, 3 under 32 going out, and 5 under 30 coming in. Birdies at 17 and 18 to close out. Just a phenomenal round of 62.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. And, you know, he's been kind of low key been playing good for like a year, right? He had that T2 at the Open Championship last year. It's T4 at the Canadian Open. It hasn't been anything like, you know, winning or like kind of in it on Sundays, but it's been really consistently pretty solid, maybe more solid than I thought it was going to be. And yeah, I mean, this is a good spot for him, right? Because it's you think about a Tom Kim, he's not crazy long. It's RBC Heritage, it's Sony Open, it's a place like this. It seems like those are the places, yes, where you can kind of lean on your approach play. And if you make some putts, then, you know, maybe you steal a win in there. So it's good to see him play well. He's a great character, and it'd be fun if he kind of stayed in it all weekend.
Yeah, I thought you'd like him in this because he is a precise player.
Yep.
Right? He's accurate off the tee. You get him in that 125 to 150, and he's really good, really precise with the wedges, and you get a whole bunch of them this week. So I think that's a really good sign. And to start off with a 62 is a great way to keep yourself in this tournament. And it's the kind of bonus round that keeps you near the top of the leaderboard, even with some marginal rounds on Friday and Saturday. It's very likely that Tom Kim's in the mix heading into Sunday because he did all this work today. Yep. So great to see. But he's got more work to do because there are heavy hitters behind him. It's a signature event. It's exactly what you expect, but it's exactly what you got. Because Tony Finau, who we've made mention of a couple of times, goes out and shoots 65. He makes 6 birdies on the day. Bogey's number 15. He hit it in the water off the tee, which was disappointing. But Big Tony is looking really strong, especially with that iron play.
Yeah, Tony was my pick this week. I was really excited about him coming off the U.S. Open. I thought that, you know, he was the kind of guy at the U.S. Open that he played great, but he didn't expend a ton of emotional energy, which is kind of what you want going into the next event, right? And his iron play has been really good, Greg. Like really, really good. He gained 3.5 strokes approach on Thursday, but it's not just that. It's kind of throughout the year. I'd have to look at the numbers. So I've got him right here. He's gaining almost a stroke on approach, which is
per round,
which is right there with the best year of his career. So the second best right now. And, his putting has been down a little bit. The worst putting year, at least right now, of his career, not significantly. It's a kind of number that you look at and you're like, oh, that will correct. Like that does not seem like crazy. It'll probably correct by the end of the year. And if it does, Greg, I really think he could win like a couple times before between now and Tour Championship.
Yeah, you think about 3M, a place he's won before, in the mix this week, obviously. He's played well. Didn't he play well at Carnoustie in the Open?
What was that? 2018?
18.
He finished T9. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he finished fifth. That was Shinnecock, the U.S. Open. He finished fifth in the U.S. Open.
Right.
That year.
Right. So, and with the great finish at Pinehurst, this is starting to turn into a Tony Finau year. I thought it was going to happen a little earlier. It didn't. But it's coming to fruition now. He made a change with his putter. He started to get the toe much more in the ground. He's going with the claw grip, and we're starting to see some slow progression with him, which is it doesn't make it a weapon, but it's not a glaring weakness anymore. And that's what we've seen over the last 2 weeks and in this opening round as well. So Good stuff from Tony Finau. Also, if you're watching late on the coverage, surprise, surprise, world number 2, Xander Schauffele, has also gotten himself into the mix as he shoots 5 under 65. He's had some pretty good runs here at TPC River Highlands. 6 birdies, just a 1 bogey at number 10. Some really good stuff out of Xander as well.
Yeah, listen to his last, I think it's like 12 starts. So going back to Genesis, T4 at Riv, T25, T2, T5, 8th, T18, T23. That was Zurich team event. Second, win the PGA, T8, T7. I mean, everything's a top 25. So it's just, to me, it's automatic that it's going to be a top 25. And if he puts it well this week, then he's going to have a chance to win on Sunday.
Yeah, and he putts well every week, it seems. He's one of those guys that can lead the field in strokes gained putting, and I don't feel like it's going to catch up to him because he makes the mid-rangers so regularly. He's really impressive. And if it weren't for Scottie Scheffler, he's the number 1 player in the world. And Right now they're tied with 3 rounds to go. So it's going to be fascinating to watch the last 3 rounds of the Travelers this week because there are so many interesting storylines as you outlined, KP. But let's take a look at some of these betting lines because this is a curious one with Tom Kim leading. You got Scottie right there in the mix. Yeah,
Ludwig is still in there. What did Ludwig shoot? 60.
Ludwig, I believe, shot 67. He was at 3 under.
Okay, you're right. I was thinking 66, but it was 60.
Yeah, 3 under. So he's a T18. He was bogey free in the opening round.
Okay.
But at 18-1, I mean, 5 shots back. I don't know. Is this enough respect for Tom Kim at plus 650?
Yeah. I mean, look, like when you don't have, like, his contention has been so, few and far between that I think that it looks weird because he's behind 2 guys, but I think that number is actually a very fair number. The 2 that I love, Greg, are Finau at 18 and Akshay at 22.
Yeah. Akshay at 22 years old. And Tom Kim will be 22 tomorrow. Interesting. I'm with you on Finau. I mean, I looked through a lot of these rounds, checked out where guys hit it off the tee. And most of them, even if they were missing fairways, they were either scrambling like Kurt Kitayama or hitting it into like fairway bunkers and in the intermediate cut. They're not in the heavy rough more than, once or twice. Finau was in the heavy rough a bunch and was able to hit it on the green and hold it on the green.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see a lot of that. Most of the guys, if they could get it to the green, it's rolling through the green. You got to go away from bunkers. You got to play wide. Like they're paying a lot of respect to the rough. But Finau seems like it doesn't affect him. I think that strength is going to be really, really beneficial over these next couple rounds.
Yeah. I think it's crazy that Scottie is 3 down and not even in the top 5, and he's still plus 260. I think his odds have dropped.
I think they dropped too.
That's wild. I mean, it's not unwarranted. It's just, I think it's emblematic of the kind of year he's having.
Yeah. And you just know that he's going to repeat this again tomorrow. And you question if Tom Kim can.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
So it's going to be fun to watch. We'll get a chance to see Scottie Scheffler tomorrow in the afternoon. Xander Schauffele will be out early. So it'll be fun to watch these guys battle it out on a beautiful golf course. Also, before we get going here, KP, weather expected to roll in tomorrow. We'll get some pop-up thunderstorms. So tee times they've been moved an hour earlier than originally expected. So we'll keep our eye on it, and we'll be back with you tomorrow night for a round 2 recap. We'll be back with you Saturday night for a round 3 recap. And of course, Sunday we'll wrap it all up, put a bow on the Travelers Championship, and congratulate a winner. Anything else before we get going here, KP?
No, that's it. I was not super pumped about the golf coming in, just coming off that US Open, and this leaderboard has got me more into it. It's a good board. It's kind of an eclectic board in some ways, and I think that's exciting going into the last 3 days.
Yeah, I expect it to stay that way. It's an awesome golf course, kind of a home game for me. So I really do enjoy this event, and I think you will too. So hopefully you get a chance to watch. But big thanks to Kyle Porter. You can find him on X at Kyle Porter CBS. Josh Mullinex, all of his hard work behind the scenes, putting this show together, corralling us all. Rick Gehman, we wish you your safe and fun trip, and hopefully we get the car back in the garage unscathed.
The car's, yeah, I think the car's fine. It might need gas, but yeah, I think it's fine otherwise.
Yeah, we held it together pretty good.
We used all the money for pizza instead of gas.
All right. That's all we got for you tonight. Again, we'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of the Travelers Championship. We're out of here.